guys, this is Vanessa Elaine, owner of P3. She is helping women become that girl in Christ, aka the best version of themselves. You're back to school in your 30s. You were on the Today Show. Like, what aren't you doing? I feel like you're just all over the place, which is such a blessing. I love that you're willing to even be on here. I know you're super busy. I'm like, what does your calendar look like?
It's a lot. And I'm like, I was just thinking, like, God, help me steward everything well.
Yes.
Help me steward everything well, because I do not want to be overwhelmed. But I think that's the beauty of being in your singleness, being busy, like filling you up and like doing the things that God told you to
Yeah.
do. Me going back to school, I should have been finished. So that was me. And COVID happened
Yeah.
and I stopped and I was like, you know what? Let me come back. I'm in a new state. So I don't want to say it's overwhelming. I definitely know, like, I feel like it's challenging my time management.
Mm,
I really can't, no, I have to stick to the program. So I do have a
yeah.
routine. Sometimes I have to pivot off that routine and I experience the consequences with like assignments and stuff being due, and then still trying to catch up with everything else like social
Yeah.
media, P3 Girls Club community. So it's a lot.
Yes. But I mean, God's never going to give us something that we can't handle, right?
Amen.
Anyways, I'm just so excited. Seriously, like, yeah, I mean, time management's no joke when it comes to having to navigate all the different things. But then that also falls in a space of like you're trying to navigate your friendships, your relationships, all these different things, right? And so, I mean, I would imagine you have to have like the best circle because most people don't understand that when you are leading this life that Christ is leading us on, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess, first of all, I know this was not going to be my first question, but here it is. I saw that on the Today Show, your friend was like, do you have room for me? And
Yeah.
obviously that was not in a space of like, yeah, she knows you're busy, but it's true. Emotionally, we're going through all the different things. So your association, like, what does that really look like for you? And how are you mindful of your association to make sure that they're aligned with you, right? Like Christ.
So that friend, I've been friends with her since I was like 13, 14 years old. So
Mm,
this is somebody back home. So this is somebody that grew, like, we watch each other grow. So she knew me before
yeah.
Christ. So she was going through something, and I'm the empath, so I always am the listening ear. I'm always the one friend that everybody comes
Yeah.
to and vent, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm gonna give you
Yeah.
Jesus. I never think of it being too much because I just feel like that's what a friend is supposed to
Yeah.
do. But understanding that boundaries is important,
Mhm.
and her like asking that question let me know, like, okay, I don't have to take on
Yeah.
everything. It made me open my eyes, like, I have a
Yeah.
choice, and me saying no does not make me a bad friend.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that that happened though, because it's like even me just hearing that, I was like, oh, you know what? When we're very alike, where we're just taking on all these different things, and
Mhm.
we want to be the person that people can come to, but sometimes we just don't have the capacity for it. And there's a sense of sometimes shame that the enemy brings, right? Like to us, like, oh man, like I just don't have the capacity for that right now, but I want to be there. Wherewith, if we have the right circle, if we're filling ourselves with the right people, we're able to be like, hey, right now I'm not, but later
Mhm.
on I might be in a better space and I would be excited to be able to help navigate X, Y, and Z, right? But I mean the maturity that has to come with that friendship, I was like in shock because I wish that more of us could have that. No one talks about the blessing of Jesus having like even just 12, I'm going to say 11,
Mhm.
11 real friends. Right. Yeah, I'm going to disinclude homie because he makes me angry.
I I think Jesus set the standard.
Yeah.
You have to teach people how to treat you.
Mm.
Many times we see how Jesus, yeah, he had 12 disciples that walked closely with him, but he also had like hundreds, maybe thousands of people following him on a daily.
Yeah.
He always went away for his quiet time.
Yes. Yeah.
That was the boundaries that he had.
So, I
He will
mean,
always leave and go by himself.
and that, which I was actually just talking to my husband about that. I was like, we need to set better boundaries. And I'm actually pretty good with setting boundaries now. I've had a lot of trauma happen in my past. So, like, I'm pretty good with it, but it doesn't mean the urge to people please and help is not there, especially as a coach, because you mentor people all the time. So, you know how it
Yeah.
is that you're in coach mode and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And you're like, wait, I have to have this alone time so I can speak to my father. And I'd actually love to talk to you about that. Like, how did your personal relationship with Christ really shape your journey toward becoming the best version of yourself?
It was a long, I'm not gonna say a long process, but it was so worth it.
Mm.
I gave my life to Christ at the age of 23. That was in 2014. And I was not ready. You know how some people feel like, oh, when I'm ready, I'm going to come to God because I don't have to sacrifice a lot. Literally, I was not ready. I wasn't planning
Mm.
on giving my life to Christ and taking this walk seriously, but I went to church and I was going through like a depressed moment
Mm.
in my life.
Yeah.
I was depressed and I went to church and literally the lady who I did not know, I didn't even come for her. You have that
Yeah.
favorite church you like to visit and the pastor, like that pastor gives a
Yeah.
good word. I went to church with a guest pastor, and I'm like, man, I came on the wrong day. Because I was like, I don't know this lady. I don't even want to hear what she has to
Oh,
say.
no, yeah.
And she literally just called me out and was like, as she was praying for someone, she just called me out, and I sat in the back of the
Wait,
church.
wait,
She was
wait.
like, God, yes,
Do you mean she physically like, how, like, we heard something and it, like, called us
yeah.
up and out? Or was it like she literally was like, Vanessa Elaine?
Yeah, she didn't know my name. She doesn't know
Yeah.
me. She was literally they had like altar call. So there were people on near the pulpit, like she's praying over them. So there's a lot happening. I'm just in the back sitting
Yeah.
down and she just looks over, like stops praying for somebody and she looks up. She's like, you. And I was looking at her like, who she talked to? She's like, no, no, you right there. God said that you're coming.
Whoa.
And then the following week I got saved.
Oh, I just
And
got the
I don't
chills.
remember. And the thing is, I don't remember the day I got saved. I just remember that day.
Yeah.
So soon at the following week, that day I did not walk up there and gave my life to Christ. I know that for a fact. But that unction in the spirit, like, okay, she's ready.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What was that
Hmm.
tussle at home though? Like, you had to go home. Were you like, what, like, what did that look like?
I felt peace.
Hmm.
I felt like, oh yeah, maybe it is time. Like, something about this feels
Yeah.
right. So I just like, yeah. My parents did not force me to go to church. I
Mine too.
didn't. Yeah, so it was just like, yeah, whatever. If you do,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good. If you don't, okay. God loves
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I hear you.
So it was no real relationship there. Nobody didn't teach me about God. Yeah, I went to like Bible study sometimes with friends, but other than that, no.
Yeah. The fact that you were just called and I love that she stopped, because so many people are, even just pastors, sometimes step in this level of perfection and they're like, okay, I need to finish here and then I'll do that. And how many times do we do that too? It's like we feel like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to do this, and then I can talk to that person, or and then I can do God's calling. So I
Mhm.
love that, you stepped into this place. You're like, I was not ready, but also like I felt his peace, I felt his love. Like, how good is Christ to be able to do that? What was your walk after that?
Yeah. I was still trying to figure it out and I was like, okay, what do I do from here?
Yeah.
Like God. But I knew like a relationship I had to let go because that was the reason why I was depressed in the first place, being with
Mm.
the wrong person. So healing from that, but then I was still not over it. I still felt like, well, God, I started even praying, well, God, save him for me. Maybe you could turn his life around like you turned my
Yeah.
life around. I went on a fast. God put me on a fast where I didn't talk to anybody for 30 days. So I didn't
Whoa.
have a phone. I didn't have social media. I told my friends, I'll be okay if y'all want to drop in on me, but nobody's calling my phone because the phone is off.
Yeah.
So I just spent 30 days with God.
Whoa. Okay. What did that
Yeah.
look like?
A lot of time in my Bible. So I read the Bible from Genesis. I don't know why I started in Genesis, but yeah. And then I would not eat. So I would be fasting and I would just stay in my room and just pray and go to church. Like my church had prayer nights on Friday. So I was in church a lot.
Yeah.
Bible study on Tuesday, or was it
Wednesday.
Wednesday, prayer, and then Sunday. Yeah. And then, yeah, and prayer was a lot. And sometimes my church would do this thing called shut in. I come from a Haitian background, so although my church was African, and like it's an American church,
Mhm.
but my pastor was Haitian, so we had like those kind of principles where we'll pray until the morning.
Mm,
So we'll shut in the
yeah,
church.
that's
Yeah,
common
so
here in
the
the Dominican
like
Republic.
yes, other cultures do it like outside. I think America, like Western, like churches are
Yeah.
different. So we take that on from like other churches.
So
Yeah.
for those 30 days, do you feel like that was the like the moment that really reset you, or was it like the precursor and then you had some more challenges?
Yeah, I think that was a precursor. What had me, I feel like that needed to be done to be rooted, because many times I walked up there before out of emotion and nothing in my life changed. I went back to the same
Mm,
thing and I wasn't really converted. I really wasn't really sold out for Christ. So I think that's what needed to be done to set the foundation. No matter how far I go or whatever I'm dealing with, I'm going to come back because this is the new way of living that I
mm,
committed to. So of course I didn't let that person go
yeah.
automatically. I was still praying like, God will show
Yeah.
me, show me, show me. So I'll really let it go. And like even the way I thought about myself, God put me on another fast. I like to call this like the beauty
Oh, I
fast,
like
where
that.
I didn't wear makeup for 30
Mm,
days. I didn't wear like acrylic nails. I didn't wear weave. So I wore my natural hair. So that was challenging for me because taking off the idea of myself
mm,
and what I believed about myself, the exterior, and that's not real confidence, because real confidence, I feel like you could dress it up.
yeah.
Because you could put on the best clothes, you could get your hair
Yeah.
done, and you'll feel confident. But how is your self
Yeah.
esteem? How do you feel about yourself? Easily, I can by the way somebody perceives himself or how they even perceive others, I can see if you're a real confident person, if you have high self-esteem or if you have low
Yeah.
self-esteem. Yeah, because it's not about what you have on, it's about what's on the inside of you.
Amen. And also, that's something that a pressure that the world puts on us, right? And so it's really falling in
Mhm.
this place of like, where am I walking with Christ truly, or am I walking with the world? And it doesn't mean that, oh, being beautiful and putting stuff on is always of the world, right?
Yeah,
It can help us feel good if we just slap on a little something and do our hair and
yeah,
feel good. I'm not saying to be trash, but really there's these worldly things that are constantly pulling us, right? Like you have to be this shape, you have to look like
yeah.
this. If you're going to present yourself, you can't have your natural hair, like you can't put your curly hair on, like
Mhm.
what? Who set these
Yeah,
standards, right? Love that you just called that like the beauty fast, because sometimes we need to
yeah,
like bring it back to God and where He really wants us to be so that we feel comfortable in the skin that He blessed us with, right? Because we're blessed,
yes,
blessed, not stressed, right?
yes,
I actually
yes,
wanted to ask you another question if it's not too intrusive, but I did see that you were talking about abstinence. And I feel like
yes.
a lot of women, and I have been guilty of this. I might even share on this. I've never shared the story, but I might just share it today. When you're talking about basically hoping that this person is going to be different, but Christ calling you to be different, it's very difficult
Yeah,
because it's the human experience, I like to call it, right? When you're like, I feel like if this person would just step with me, then everything would change. And this is just common for women. We're just always trying to change somebody.
yeah,
Like they don't
yeah.
want to be fixed.
And I'm not Jesus, I can't do the
Right,
change.
right.
The
Um,
transformation, they'll change for you. That's
Yeah.
temporary.
Oh, yes. Very temporary. So I'd love for you maybe to chat about that too. I'd love to talk about your story of abstinence and really feeling whole in your singleness. Not saying that you're not open
Mhm.
to God putting in, that warrior in your life. But what does that really look like? Being whole in your singleness and really the decision to stay abstinent. Obviously, there's not perfection, but what did that really look like?
So going back to when I first got saved, that was a struggle because every 4 months I would fall with that same
Mm,
person because I wasn't really willing to let go. And I felt like and that was like the basis of our relationship. When you think about it, if you can't remove sex from a relationship, then that's all
yeah.
That's what keeps you guys stuck
Yeah.
together.
That soul tie.
And yeah, that soul tie, that's what kept us together. And I kept going back. And then the last time I just remember like crying.
Mm,
I would cry every single time. I'm like, I'm tired of hurting God. Sometimes you get so
yeah.
comfortable with hurting yourself. So you'll put yourself in self-sabotaging like experiences and situations. And you're okay with that.
Mhm.
You're okay with living in a cycle. But I got so close to God, like I'm tired of hurting God's heart.
Mm,
Like if God tell me not to do this because this he wants me like to use my body to give him glory and not give it to somebody that doesn't even really care about me.
yeah.
He doesn't even care about me enough to make me his
Mm,
wife, let alone like come
yeah.
on. And doesn't even value me the same way God values me. So then after my continuous cycle of falling, I finally made up in my mind that I was going to like remain
Yeah.
abstinent. But then 5 years later, which I thought, and this was a lesson for me, never think that you are so strong because you were able to abstain for something for so long,
Mm,
whether that's drinking or, gossiping, whatever it is. Don't ever think that you would not need
yeah.
God. Uh, After 5 years of being abstinent, I
Mm.
fell with the same person. I was like, "Well, God, what are you showing me?" No, that really broke
Yeah.
me because I was older. I was in God. I was doing the right thing. I had boundary with other men that I did date. Like I was so strict on these
Yeah.
boundaries, and I was successful at it. I was able to see, like, oh yeah, you're not for me because you don't
Yeah.
respect this, and then here I am, and it's not even somebody new. So it's just something that God is showing me. What is it that 5 years later that this person can come into my
Mm,
life and wreak havoc and come into my life and I'll forget everything and I know
yeah.
better. So for me, it was never think that, oh, you come too far.
Mm,
Always be submitted under Christ and never think that God is going to bring back the old.
yeah.
Sometimes it works for people, but it's gonna look
Yeah.
different. It's gonna come at you differently. If that person is still talking the same way, that's not
Yeah.
from God. If it's not in alignment with His Word, and it's just like I was going through yet again
Yeah.
a vulnerable situation. So He came at the right time. That was the middle of 2020. Everybody was
Oh,
lonely.
yeah.
2020 had like a little spirit on it.
No.
Like
The
it
spirit of
was
Jezebel.
the spirit of chaos.
100%.
Yes, so that was in the middle of 2020. We're trying to figure out things and maybe a little loneliness. And this person is familiar to me, and I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with this person. Even after years, it's still that level of comfortability. But then is I was at war with my flesh.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna say that everything was like I was all in. No, it was literally my flesh wanting this thing, and my spirit was like, no. So I was literally
Oh,
crying every day.
oh, this is why
So
they say
and
familiarity breeds contempt, right? Like
I
it breeds like this, and it's a negative thing. It's not like this, like, oh, positively. Like, no, sometimes like we'll have something that feels familiar, and the enemy uses that familiarity to break our bonds and break our thoughts and do all these different things. Okay, so what happened? Like
I prayed this prayer. I always tell people, listen, don't pray this prayer if you're not ready. I prayed this prayer. I said, God, I don't think I'm gonna leave. I don't know. I said, the fact that he was able to come back into my
Mhm.
life, I said, God, make it hurt so bad that I never come back. This is the last time I'm coming back to
Whoa.
this. So whatever lesson that I need to learn from this, let me learn all of it, not just one. Let me learn all of the lesson because this is the last time I'm coming back. So I'm going to keep
Yeah.
going. I told God because I'm a realist. I'm going to keep it real with God. I'm not going to leave right. No, I'm in it. Mind you, I'm gonna be real. This is probably too TMI. I'm 30 at this
Mhm.
time. I'm 29,
It's not
30.
TMI. There was no TMI on the
I I haven't had sex in 5 years and I started to have sex again. That's like a
Oh,
virgin.
yes.
It was
Yeah.
good. So and then it's just like, okay, now I open myself back up and now I scratch that itch. So now I want
Yeah.
it. So now that's my flesh keep going back because this is still a toxic situation. I know that God does not have me here because my spirit, I know better. My spirit is still
Yeah.
grieving, but then my flesh is like, I want
Yeah.
this. This feels good to me. And I like having that male companionship. And you know,
I've been there.
believing in the lies, and you make yourself believe in the lies. Like,
No,
girl, be
I feel like women, a lot of women, if we're keeping it real, a lot of women have
yes,
been there in their singleness. I have been there. I
yes,
that
yes,
1000%. I remember the moment that broke me, that I was like,
yes,
okay, because I made the same decision. I was like, and this is after I had a child. Okay. My daughter came from a very unfortunate situation. I'm very, very blessed to have her. But after that, had the relationships, all these different things. There was this one toxic person. The one is always the one toxic person. And I remember getting right with God and saying, I'm not going to have sex before marriage. Like, this is
yeah,
like, I'm going to give my body to the person that deserves me. I dated and I was like, nope, 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 you're not getting none. Like, we're good. But this one person it was like, knew the things to say to me. And that's how the enemy works. They know the things to say to
yeah,
you. They know the ego. They know what makes you feel good in this world. Right. And so he sends this person. And I remember my breaking point. Um, this will be the first time I share this, but literally it was like, went to his place. I was in bed, I was naked, and
yeah,
I just felt so shameful, so much shame.
yeah.
And the spirit told me, if you do this with him, you will be trapped forever.
Ooh,
And I'm in bed naked,
ooh,
naked. You will be trapped forever. And I remember hopping up and tears down my face. And I said,
okay,
are you trying to get me pregnant? And he started crying, crying. This man has never cried in front of me. He was like, I can just feel you slipping away. And I know that this is the one way I can keep you. He had mentally prepared to,
what?
yes, yes, yes. Yes. And I'm sharing this story because it needs to
Yeah,
touch. I don't care what people may think after this, but I'm sharing the story
yeah,
because there is someone else that is like you, like me, that we are stuck with that person. And we keep convincing ourselves mentally, like, they're going to be the person, they're going to change. I can make this better. We can make it work. And it's
yeah,
all the feel goods. But afterwards, if we feel complete shame and it, like, crying every single time, every time I had did the deed, I always felt shame
yeah,
afterwards. I always was like, God, like, please, like, I don't understand why I keep making these two. I'm smart,
yeah,
right? So I love that you're talking about this story, and this is my first time sharing the story, but and I'm sharing it because I want people to understand, like, the spirit speaks. When
yes,
he speaks, it sometimes it's really loud and uncomfortable, and it is a sudden movement, like, okay, wait, whether that be get out of the house, something's happening, get out of the store, don't don't go left, you know what I mean, just little things. So I mean, what happened from there? You were like, it needs to get bad, so what happened?
oh, it got bad. It got very disrespectful, and then I just a lot. Okay, let me say this. He was feeding me a lot of lies,
Mm-hmm.
right, and things that I wanted to hear, and sometimes when you're arguing, you're not able to hear, or when you're doing most of the talking, because remember I said it was toxic, so I would literally express myself.
Mm-hmm.
This time I wasn't holding back because I wasn't that girl that was 20 something years old that was depending on
Yeah.
him. I literally, I'm a different person. I know myself, although I'm in an unfortunate situation. I literally was pouring out my heart because sometimes I would. Back then, I remember I was so reserved and like, oh, I don't, or like prideful. Like, I don't want him to know that he has me in this
Yeah.
way, but your actions clearly show it. So I would literally pour out my heart, like letting this person know like how I feel and everything. And then one day I just finally shut up
Mm.
and allowed him to speak. And literally, he poured out his heart to me.
Mm.
And he said, well, how he really felt. And how he really felt was not aligned with how I felt.
Wow.
And that's all I needed to
Yeah.
hear. And I feel like that's what broke it because for so long he fed me these lies and saying, oh, yeah, I do want to be with you. I do. But then his actions wouldn't really align with
Yeah.
that because he was still with the mother of his child. So
Mm.
now it's just like you're entertaining both of us, but like, oh, but I want you. I'm always with you. Like I'm just with her because, and it's just like, even though I know this is
Yeah.
wrong, it's just like I don't know. It's like I'm not with her. We just live together.
Wow.
Really? And you like sometimes you would think like, well, what woman would believe that if he would? And literally, I was one of, and I would never think that would be my
Yeah.
story. And it's a like rejection has something to do with it too. Like that broke me
Mm,
because it's just like, oh, you put me in a compromising situation where I'm like, even though it shouldn't be competition, there is some sort of competition with me and this woman
yeah.
because you're saying that you're in love with both of us.
Nah.
So literally, I just shut up and he told me exactly how he felt. And he said everything. And we were in a hotel room. And in the moment I said no, I was like, I went there to spend the night because I came from a
Yeah.
party. And he tried to sleep with me, but I already made up in my mind I'm not sleeping with you anymore. And I told him no. And that just like he was so
Mm,
enraged the fact that I told him no. I was like, yeah, I'm not sleeping with you anymore.
the rage.
Yes, and then he just said how he felt, and then he took my bags and he put it outside the door, and I left quietly. Like and I was the type of person that was very like argumentative and always wanted to say my piece. No, he said everything, and I just looked at him. I didn't even react, and I just walked away.
Mm.
That's the last time he saw me and
I was
heard
gonna
from me,
say, has
and
he
that's
ever
been.
tried to reach back out? Like,
Um, yeah, I think like a few weeks later, I would get block numbers calling my
mm,
phone, restricted numbers. But and I knew he was like watch stalking my
sure.
Instagram, and then I moved. I moved to another
Yeah.
state. Yeah, and I said, and I did tell God, I was like, I need to move
Mhm.
because if I don't, I feel like I'm too comfortable here, and that's how I was able to. He was able to come back into my life. In order for me to grow, in order for me to see what you can do
Separation.
for me, I need to be separated,
Mhm.
and literally, yeah.
Gosh.
And that was that relationship was a
Mhm.
stronghold like that. So I had never felt like that
Yeah.
about anybody. And one thing I could point out is that although it was a bad situation, not all of it was bad. He did a lot of
Sure.
good. And how I wished my father would have been with me,
Mm.
he was that. Like he
Mhm.
was a man of his word. Whether he was mad, I would literally we'll be arguing about something and he promised me that he was gonna maybe fix my car or something. He would always
Yeah.
come through. Like he was a man of his word. So I'm like, okay, that was somebody I could depend
Mm.
on. So that was
But
yeah.
sometimes that's how we're fed, and you were talking about your
Yeah.
dad. Was there a gap with your father that you felt like maybe you were feeding those needs with men in your life, for example, him, or I could be wrong with
No.
that.
Not necessarily. So my father and my mother are married. So my father, I was raised with my father in the home, but then they split
Okay.
up because my father's infidelity.
Mm.
So they split up. So I have experience of being a daddy's girl, and then it changing when I got like to
Oh,
teenage
and that's when
years.
you need them the
Um,
most.
high school, yeah, high school. For sure. Like, yeah, I think it was like my freshman year in high school. That's when they kind of like separated. So I have that foundation where my father was very strict. So I have like, oh, I have like that fatherly love. But then as I got older and I needed different things, like, or promises that my dad did make, he would not come through with it.
Mm.
Like, or he'll just do his own thing. I don't know if he was going through a midlife crisis.
Sure.
That's what I like to think. Like, he became very selfish. I don't know, maybe because him and my mother were
Yeah.
separated where I would ask him for certain things. He'd be like, well, like he was supposed to buy me my first car. I bought my own first car. But it's like promises that
Sure.
I'm like, oh, yeah, I can't depend on you. You say things and you don't follow
Yeah.
through. It was like that. So I feel like my father disappointed me in that
Got
way.
you.
So I didn't really have like a wound, kind of like my father being absent because he was always
Yeah.
there. But as far as keeping his word, no, especially when I
But
got
even
older.
that
Yeah.
sometimes is like even someone can be present, but if they're not keeping their word,
Yeah.
it feels like they're not present, right? And sometimes we
Yeah.
start, seeking that in other things, right? Whether that be a friendship, whether that
Mhm.
be a relationship, whatever that may be. And so I'm so sorry that you went through that, but also I'm not because it led you to be the person that you are. And now you're like streamlined. I know exactly what I need. I know who I am. I know that, God has a plan, God has a man. So we're not going to stress about
Yeah.
it. Right. Yes, that is my motto.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely resonate with your story so much just because I've been there. Right. And I think a lot of people have been there, but also it's almost viewed as taboo to talk about as a Christian woman, right? Which I think is a huge flaw in the church. Don't get me started. When we're not able to talk about these things because we can teach on them, we can help the prevention if it's something that's not
Yeah.
really like, shh, shouldn't talk about. Even in
Yeah.
marriage, like, don't talk about sex. Like, weird. Have you read the Bible? Because
That's
there are lots of songs written about it, and it could help a lot of people if these young boys could understand stepping into marriage is intimacy on 12 different levels. There's actually 12 different levels of intimacy. It's not just sex, but in our
yes.
society it's viewed as sex, 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 and I have fallen prey to this, and I know that you have too, where we're just like, it feels good, you give into the flesh and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, it's so great in the moment, but then afterwards you're like, I am so sorry. And how good is it that we have a forgiving God? And right?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if he was like, you get one time, then you're done, right? Like, that would suck.
Yes.
So I know that you mentor women and you help them tremendously. And so, for anyone that's kind of in that season with the person that they're not supposed to be with, something that I teach is that red flags in dating turn into black holes in marriage, period.
Ooh.
Yeah. So if we don't correct those things, then essentially we just go down this negative spiral that locks us in for life. What would be your advice to the woman that's like really struggling in her singleness, or maybe not even struggling, but has these moments of vulnerability, of almost giving back in to that person, to that thing,
Mhm.
to the vices that sometimes comes in a form of a man?
Yeah. I want to say Jesus is enough.
Yes.
I feel like people try to fill that void with everything else because they didn't fully give their heart to God.
Mm.
When you give everything, your whole heart to God, every area, even your fears, let him know you can be real with God. I do want, you can express what you want. He gives you your heart's
Yeah.
desires, but the intention of it, because some people, a marriage is an idol to them, that they're only seeking after God so they can put on this form of a godly woman so they can attain marriage. And it's just like,
Mm.
you're attracting the wrong person, because
Yeah.
many times I hear these stories where great women of God get with these men, and then the man is in church and everything, and he's, I don't want to say the devil, but he is a complete
Mhm.
narcissistic.
Mhm.
And she's like, how was she not able to discern that? If you are in your prayer closet, if you know you've been praying for a husband, how would you let the
Oh,
counterfeit in and not have the discernment and have the Holy Spirit? Because you void out the voice of
mm.
God, because you want something so bad. And that is so dangerous, to desperately want
Yeah.
anything in life. You desperately want money, you'll start to do things that you said you would
Yeah.
never do.
Yes.
It goes against your morals. So it's just like giving your whole self to Jesus, that he is enough. And then you'll enjoy life. Because a lot of times when people are in their waiting season and singleness, the reason why you're lonely is not to say that you'll never miss like having being in a relationship with a man. But the reason why most people are like dreading singleness is because they don't really love
Yeah.
themselves. They are not really comfortable with themselves. They can't even go out to eat by
Yeah.
themselves. They always need somebody. All either a friend or anything. You don't even love
Yes.
yourself, but you want somebody else to love all of you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I was just talking to this with my husband. We were talking about my singleness, and he was like, he just found out recently that I used to take myself on dates. He was like, you took yourself on dates? I'm like, yeah, like you need to be comfortable with sitting at a table by yourself, ordering your main course, your dessert. Like you need to be comfortable. I used to take myself to the movies. Like, yes, I know. I saw your reel. Like, I'm gonna go to the
Yeah.
movie. I don't need anybody to be with me. But I understand that Jesus did, not Jesus, but God, he made us so that we can have, the
Yeah.
community. But Jesus set the tone of it's okay to be alone, to come back
Yeah.
to where you need to be, right? And so
Yeah.
I love that you talk about that. A lot of women like, girl, take yourself out on a date. Like, I think that sometimes you see all these different Instagram things or TikToks or whatever, and you're seeing the standard of a man setting the tone. It's like, what's the tone look like? You set the tone. What's it look like for you so that you know what it looks like when someone is coming into your life, right? Like roll out your
Yeah.
own red carpet. Be aligned with God, be in your warrior room talking to him, and be okay with that space. And it doesn't mean we're perfect, because I've been there, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's not a level of perfection, but I love that you talk about that.
Okay.
Who helps in your discipleship? I'm just curious.
My church, my apostle, and my friend, I don't want to say she's kind of like my best friend, but she's my cousin. She's also a
I love
minister.
that.
So, and that's my accountability
Okay,
partner.
so what tell me a little bit about that. Like, how serious is it for someone to have an accountability partner?
So serious, because I don't like yes men's. I don't like people who either are scared of me, intimidated by me, then you won't keep it real
Yeah.
with me. You just want to be my friend just to be my
Mm,
friend, and it's just not going to work. I don't like people who don't have a voice of their
amen.
own and don't have a mind of their own.
Yeah.
So if you cannot check me when I'm wrong, like, hey, I don't like that. I appreciate it. I'm not a person to buck
Yeah.
back. And if I buck back, or if I say, I'm like, because I need to
Yeah.
understand. Because I
I get it.
but I
Yeah.
trust. Well, yeah, I trust what you're saying. So my accountability part, I know she's gonna keep it
Yeah.
real, because she's not afraid of telling me the truth about
Yeah.
myself. So I can tell her things, and she'll tell me if, like, no,
That's about
that was not
Vanessa's
right. You
stress.
received it wrong. She's gonna always bring Bible into it, and that's
Yes.
what I love. Bring Jesus into it, because if you bring in feelings, I may not
No, for
understand,
sure.
because everybody's perception is
Yes.
different, and they interpret things differently. So if you bring in Bible, okay, you remember this, and
Yeah.
praying for me. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you have a circle around you, or even just someone that can keep it real with you. I think that's another thing that women really need to seek is not approval from others. We should make that very, very clear, because
Mhm.
sometimes people in the midst of trying to find the person that can disciple them, they're like, I don't know if you've ever been there, where you're like plugging into people who are really more so, like you said, the yes people. Like, yeah, that's fine. Like,
Mhm.
no, I know that was wrong. Like, you need to tell me it was wrong. You know what I mean? So I love that you're
Yeah.
talking about that. But most women, they just don't. A lot of women are almost not prepared to step into the wholeness, the goodness, and they're not aware of that. So the awareness of, hey, like, I need to be able to not only be with someone that can help me thrive and be better, but someone who's going to always refer back to the Bible. Which actually brings me to my next question. Like, how do you really advise women to balance trusting God, like his timing, while really actively working toward your goals and dreams? A lot of Christians will say, I'm in my waiting season, so I'm waiting. It's like, I hear you, but are you moving your feet? Are you aligning yourself properly? Like, what does that mean? And I think also some churches, and this is not to diss the church, but like, sometimes
Yeah.
they'll be like, you're just in your waiting season. You just gotta wait. It's like, no, like, give me some context, right? Because
Yeah.
I know that Noah was not like, I'm in my waiting season, I'm waiting for the rain, and then I'm gonna build it. Like, no, he built it. He built it in the waiting season. I forgot what my question was, though, about, oh yeah, trusting God's timing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said the church. They
Yeah,
tell them.
yeah. They'll tell them, like, just be in the waiting season, and that's that. And it's like, that is terrible advice. Okay. Because some people, yes, they're moving their feet and they're doing all the things, and that is their waiting season. But for some other people, it's like, ma'am, what are you talking about? You're in your waiting season, but also you haven't aligned your prayer room. You haven't actually done the work on yourself. You're getting worse than you were yesterday. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm trying to call you up. We need to change. Like, we cannot just be sitting here like, Lord, make me a multimillionaire, set me on the stages. Amen. Like, where's the work? You got to put in some work. So
Yeah.
tell me, like, for you, because I feel like you are setting the standard, and I love that so much. And I love even more that you set the standard for yourself. You're not even telling other women, like, hey, like, this is how it needs to be. You're like, I'm setting the standard for
Yeah.
myself. If you'd love to follow,
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you on this journey. Right? I love that.
Right. Yes, the whole waiting, yes, you have to wait, but what are you doing with the time that you're waiting? And it's just like, some women have never even been on a date, which I'm like, oh my, not everybody's experience is the same. So if this person never been on a date, somebody take them to like McDonald's, they're gonna be happy. And it's just like, no, girl, no, we gotta, no, you're a daughter of a king. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with a man that probably can only afford those things, but you have to come
Yeah.
up.
Yes.
You have to set a standard for yourself. And dating, okay, so I have, for me, I'm not at the place where I'm going to just be dating, like openly dating multiple people. That's never been my
Yeah.
thing. Tried it when I was in the world. I don't like it. I don't like having to deal with different personalities and having to navigate all of that. And I hear people, even Christian women, get on platforms and say, no, y'all need to date multiple people. How would you know? Literally, you will know because they don't last
Yeah.
for long. So
Yeah.
after I say that prayer, God will show me and reveal, like, okay, this is not it.
Yeah.
And I know it won't even last a week or 2 weeks. Not, it never goes
Yeah.
for a
Wait,
month.
what
So
prayer?
it's still dating,
What prayer?
but you just, Father God, if this person is for me, you will reveal it. If this person is not for me, reveal it to me.
Yes.
Let me not entertain anybody that is not my husband.
Mm.
If this person is the counterfeit, let my eyes be able to see clearly.
Yes.
And when you don't involve sex, you're able to see that person and you have to know what you want. If you do not know what you want, you'll fall for
Mm.
anything. And knowing like asking the important questions.
Yeah.
But you won't know how to ask the important questions if you don't know what you want.
Yes.
And you can't go based off of somebody else's list and somebody else's questions because that's not the life you want to
Yeah.
live. Stop taking from social media. Yeah, you can take nuggets from people because I put out content out
Yeah.
there, right? And of course, I want the ladies to listen to me, or no, just take what is for you. I don't take everybody's
It's a
message
grocery cart
unless it
message.
fully releases. Yeah, and I don't know. I just feel like people don't know themselves, and they see this picture and they're like, I like how this look. I like how she looks. So I think I want everything. No, you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
You probably won't even, girl. The stuff I want, I probably won't even see my husband. See my husband for long. I don't know.
God is
Hey.
doing something big in your life. I think that you are very, what's so beautiful, let me just tell you, like, I love, and it's so crazy how God connected us because, like, you literally, you messaged, and I was like, who is this woman? Like, I like her. And then, like, you have all these followers, and I'm like looking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's spitting truth, 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 truth. I know that your husband is probably watching you every single day preparing himself. Like, I'm going to talk to her when I get
Mm-hmm.
this right. And actually, that's the man that we need in our life, right? Like, the man, like, I'm
Yeah.
preparing myself so that I'm ready for my wife because I need to make sure that she deserves the things that she has, right? She gets the flowers, right? If you like that. I'm not a flower
Yeah.
fan. I'm like, my husband will bring me flowers. I'm like, why? They should have stayed in the ground. Other women, they love flowers. They're like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I'm like, keep it in the pot, so everyone's totally different. But really, like, I think that the way that you have set the standard for yourself, it is inevitable. Like, a man, God has a man, God has a plan, and you are following the plan, right? And I really believe that will come soon. I really do.
Yeah.
It's not even like, oh, I'm just thinking, like, no, like, you're setting the standard, and he's there, and he's like, I feel like he's already seeing you. Like, you're there, and he's
Yeah.
probably just like, okay, I need to prepare for her, right? In the best
Yes.
way, not in a negative way, right? Because that's really what we're
Yes.
doing. We're preparing the kingdom. It's just like a whole different situation. That's how my husband came through. I said, listen, I told myself I am not, like, after that whole situation, I was like, listen, God, I'm okay. I am good. I am not going to fall prey to this anymore. Right? Like,
Yeah.
that was a scary situation for someone to be sitting across. Right? I'm, like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I'm already raising a child and doing the best that I can. And there were signs he had never met my kid. I knew I did that though. I was really firm on it. I didn't want her to get confused and be like, "Daddy," to, like, everyone. You know what I mean? And I think that
Yeah.
that's another thing, that some people in their loneliness, they bring their children through it. And it is
Yes.
a scary, scary space. My husband and I, we met on, because we were both motivational speakers. And so that's how I met him. And I remember when I first met him, it was not love at first sight. I was like, this white dude is rude. You're supposed to be personally growing, but I didn't realize that it's just that like he was focused, right? Like he wasn't trying to be where he was focused. And sometimes that's another thing
Mhm.
is like we might misconceive or misperceive someone and their focusedness. Like someone for you, period, a friend, a relationship might be like, she's just super focused right now. She don't have time for nobody versus the person that's like, she's super focused right now. And that's very sexy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like when so like my husband and I, like, first of all, like I said, I wasn't love at first fight. Yes, we fought a lot. I was crazy. I needed to work on a lot. He was super peaceful, you know. He would
Yes.
talk to me like gentle, like, okay, so like, how does that make you feel? I'm like, what are you talking about? How does that make me feel? I just told you how it makes me feel. He's like, why are you talking to me like that? Right? It took my husband being like
Mhm.
really truly centered with God for me to be like, I need to get
Yeah.
it together.
And that's how you
Yes.
know you found the person.
Yes.
Because where you fall short, that person just covers you. And
Yes.
that's why I say that nobody's gonna ever be perfect.
No, except my husband.
But you
I'm
see
just
how
joking.
God,
Just kidding.
but you see how God just gave you exactly what you
Yes,
needed.
1000%.
And it didn't come packaged how you expected. I don't know what you expected, but it probably didn't come packaged.
No, ever. I dated.
You probably didn't think you were gonna marry a white man.
No,
I don't
no, I didn't. I did not. Okay. I
know.
like anybody I dated, they looked kind of white, but they were definitely mixed with something. You know what I mean? And my husband is, he's the vanilla. Okay, he comes from the
Yeah,
Switzerland lands.
yeah,
No, but
yeah.
yeah, he really did. He met me where I was, and I remember like first date, he was like, "Hey, do you want to come to church?" My friend had been inviting me to this church for a year, and I kept, "No, no, no." He said, "You want to come to church?" I was like, "Yes." I'll come to your church. And I experienced the Christian experience. And our first official date, he asked me the hard questions, and so did I. We talked about how many kids we wanted. We talked about marriage. I remember him asking me, "Do you believe in living with a man before marriage?" I lived with my dad. I was like, I don't know. I've never stepped into that. I've always just kind of culturally, it's okay to live with your parents. So that's what I do,
Yeah,
and he just was like, okay, but what is your perspective on that? I was like, I genuinely had never thought about it. But these are the questions that
yeah,
he called me up to. And so I just love that you even share what you have shared because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. And I'm so excited for the man that comes into your life and that just honestly meets you where you're at, calls you to be better because that's our help meet does. And you'll call him to be better in different areas. And I'm just so
yeah.
excited for him to treat you like the queen that you are because, man,
Thank you.
you really are royalty and you like literally like just exude it. Not because of makeup, not because of hairstyle, but because the way you talk and the way that you walk. I just want to kind of chat with you. Last thing, really, when you're setting setting the standard for yourself, right? When you're walking in this place and you're setting the standard for yourself and you're walking your wholeness, like what do you feel were, aside from dating, were kind of the biggest challenges that you faced in your journey to like reach that spiritual growth, and how did you like navigate through that faith, right? But also knowing how and when to set the standard for yourself. Sorry, it's a lot of questions in one.
Yeah. What stood in the way was
Okay.
me and not fully not really trusting in God. How I say, like it's nice to say, or it's like the Christian thing to say is to move by faith, but I wasn't really moving by faith. I
Mm,
really didn't trust God. I was still having control over certain areas of my life, and I think this year is the year I'm like, okay, God, whatever you want me to do,
yeah.
whatever you need me to do, I'm gonna just do it. And my obedience. So it was many times I was disobedient with God, and I paid the price for that. And I continuously saw my life in cycles, and that's why I said
Yeah.
I would always speak to that person that I fell with. And one lesson that I had to learn is this: safe that I had to go through that. Him coming back into my life 5 years later, that God had to do that.
Hmm.
Because if I would have got married, and I have a lot of married friends. So if I would have gotten an argument with my husband, who's to say I wouldn't go back to that person? Because that soul tie was still there.
Whoa.
I was still emotionally attached to that person. So that would have been somebody I probably would have fell and like cheated on my husband with.
No, rebuke it.
No, but that's
Yeah,
real because it
yeah,
happens because it was still there. I didn't, that tie was not, oh, I was able to have that boundary up, but it let me see. I'm gonna compare it to something. That was just like you know how you go to the beach and the kids build like the sand
yeah,
castle? That was just a sand
yeah.
castle.
It's not built on a
That could
solid
really
foundation.
be
Yeah,
yeah. So it wasn't really God that was like, no, I didn't really fully give that to God. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna stay away because he hurt my
yeah,
feelings. Last time we spoke, he's crazy,
yeah.
thinking I could move on from that. But that's what the revelation I had got after
Mm.
that. So yeah.
I love that you share that. Seriously, thank you so much for your vulnerability because, like I said, a lot of women will not step into this, like even just here, like it be all out there, because of this perception of like, oh, it needs to be perfect. Oh, you can't truly know the raw, real things. But I think that when we finally step out and call ourselves up, right, we're setting the standard and saying, hey, like I know my fault, and that's something that would have taken me out, right? And
Yeah.
I think we all have those things too, right? Like
Yes.
something that my husband and I do. We don't ride in cars, like with people that we know. I'm not talking about an Uber, but like even so, for example, like you're married. I'm not going to step into into a car by myself with him ever, no matter how much trust there is. And it's not because there's anything wrong with me or him. It's just like we don't need to open those doors. There needs to be no wolves, right? Like it can't. There needs to be
Hmm.
preparation, and this is something that a lot of couples, or even just in our singleness, I had to think, okay, what are the boundaries that I need to set within myself? And when I do step into a relationship, what do those boundaries look like? So, like my husband, it doesn't matter how much he loves you, cares for you, thinks you're amazing. Like he's not stepping into a car by himself with you. Has nothing to do with jealousy. We're not a jealous, like that's just not who we
Yeah.
are. But we do know that the enemy will use small things, right? Like maybe him and I got into an argument and now he's stepping into your car and you're just being nice and telling him all the things he needs to hear, and all of a sudden there's a seed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like this preparation. And so, what are the seeds that you feel like you sow in your daily life to make sure that you're properly growing, nurtured, have the things of nourishment for yourself? Obviously, there's God, but what does that routine really look like for you? I saw you throw out that one book. You were like, this manifestation book, ain't it? Right? And obviously God calls us
Yes.
to manifest things in the word, but some people
Yeah.
like they take it, you know what I mean? So I'd love to hear, just
Yeah.
kind of wrapping up, what does that routine look like, nourishing yourself so that other women can maybe take on a similar routine for themselves?
Um, my prayer life and reading the word and also being gentle with
Mm.
myself.
Hmm.
Seeing myself like Christ sees me. Cause sometimes I'm so hard on myself and you feel like, girl, God is not even that hard on you. Like,
Yeah.
relax. You made the mistakes. Relax. Be gentle with yourself and loving on myself. So in the morning, I pray. I listen to worship music and I try to like sit still because sometimes you're overthinking. You're thinking about many
Yeah.
things: what I'm gonna eat, what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna wear. I just sit
Yeah.
still and like just give God
Mm.
thanks. If I don't have nothing to pray for, if I don't feel like praying, I just give God thanks and I'll probably like pray for somebody and what I eat and working out. So that's like my daily routine. Doing something physical, like some physical activity and like the night before writing down what I have to
Mm.
do. Because if I don't have a plan, my day will be literally
Yeah.
not productive. Halfway doing
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing
I hope
that.
I answered your
What's
question.
that?
I think I hope I
No,
answered it
no,
too.
that's perfect. I think that
Okay.
it's just that a lot of women don't know how to set the standard in their life. It's not of their own fault. Like, it's just like no one has ever showed us those things. And so we have to essentially, reach out to the person that might be able to help with us. And so for you, it's starting the day with the Lord. Does that mean like, are you diving into the Bible first, or are you prayer, meditation? Like, what does that really look like for you?
So I go into the Bible first. right now I'm reading Exodus, but then I'll probably go into somewhere else. Like I do have the Bible app, so I'll read their Bible of the verse and their devotional, and they also do like a video. So I'll do that on a
Okay.
daily because it's quicker, it's on your phone. But I try to go into my actual Bible because I have a study Bible and it like breaks down every single thing.
Mm.
And yeah, like even today, as I was reading Exodus, and I realized that the world, well, how we even look at the laws, it all came from the
Mhm.
Bible, even
Yeah.
credit. So it's just like everything is in the Bible. So when you think about the standard of your life, yeah, we could look to people because it's the Bible's old, right? It's from a different
Sure.
time. You could look to people for right now for inspiration, but are you really asking God what is the standard for you?
Mm.
That's what I'm saying. Really, like I think we look at God as this, and I used to be like that, like looking at it like God, you don't understand, you don't understand. Yours is a big God, but no, He's your
Yeah.
Father. So if He's a good Father, wouldn't you go to your Father for
Yeah.
everything? Wouldn't you go to your Father about men? Wouldn't you go to your Father, teach me how to
Yeah.
date? Wouldn't you go to your Father about that thing? Teach me like about men. Wouldn't you go? And sometimes I know you can't hear God audibly. People are not, but it's in his word, and he'll probably send somebody to give you a
Yeah.
message. He'll send a sign. He's going to speak. If you're asking these questions, it's okay to ask God questions. Don't believe those people that you can't question God.
Yeah.
How am I going to know my
Yeah. I
father?
need to know. He's a good father. He tells you why. And so it's important for us
Yeah.
in anything to ask questions. Because I don't know why that's something that's like so negative. Like, oh, don't ask questions. Like, why? I need to understand.
Church told us that,
Yeah.
like that the culture, church
Yeah.
culture.
Yes.
And yeah.
And that's something that I talk about all the time. It's like, hey, like I understand having this place that you feel excited to be around like-minded people, but just know that everyone's working through their relationship with Christ. So sometimes you can be, and that's why we're seeing like you'll see like these pastors, these big showtime pastors, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you can't believe he's human? You can't believe it?" And it's because we fall into this spaces. Sometimes we idolize, right? Idolizing the pastor, idolizing the person, whatever it is. And so I just love that you talked about your routine and you just talked about, hey, like I'm going to ask the questions that need to be asked. I'm going to dive into the word, credit, man, all of it. Because here's the thing: in real life, I know for sure I have called my dad many times, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's this. In fact, my dad was actually the one that told me I would be marrying my husband. And we were at an event, girl. We were at an event. We were at an event. I was, Josh had walked past us. I was excited because my dad was going to hear me speak that day. And my dad goes, "Who's that?" And my dad had, a rocky state with the Lord, but now he's a pastor, right? So he's really walking with God. Yeah, totally, John. That's a whole other thing. But I remember my husband walking past and him being like, "You're going to marry that man." And I laughed. I was like, "Marriage? I am not about that life. No, thank you." I had seen a negative. I had friends that were married and they would beat on each other, cheat on
Yeah.
each other, all the bad examples. But really, when I look at it, like none of them were actually centered in Christ. So what I was viewing was worldly marriages. So I didn't have this
Mm-hmm.
positive perspective. So when you're talking about like taking it back to the word, right? Setting the standard for ourselves. In your singleness, I love that you're talking about that. These are things that people view as taboo. They don't talk about idolizing. They don't talk about setting the standard for yourself. They don't talk about the importance of, hey, you're going to have cravings. You're going to have sensations. You're going to get the butterflies. But are they actually people who are for you? Or are these people who are just trying to get panties for the night? You know what I mean? So thank you so much for just coming on and sharing. And I'm just so grateful that you would really share your growth and be vulnerable. It's not something you often see. Too many times we see this perfection, this cookie cutter version of a woman of God, right? Like she
Yeah.
doesn't want to talk about her dating life. She doesn't want to talk about sex. She doesn't want to talk about the past things. Even women who are married, they don't want to talk about their past. Like, well, we're going to look forward. Oh, that's awesome. I want to know how you got there. How did you get there? Were you
Yes.
always
Yes.
perfect or were you a hot mess express? What train were you on? Because I was on the crazy
Yeah.
train. And hey, I still have a lot of, yes, girl. Yes. And here's the thing. Also, it's something that they like culturally, like, oh, I'm just Latina. It is what it is. Like, that is not an excuse to not live
Yeah.
the way you're supposed to live. Laugh a lot. Live. Don't blame it
Yes.
on your culture. Thank you so much. Seriously, I am so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful for your mind and especially your heart. Like, you truly are a woman after God, and that is just such a blessing to see and refreshing to see. So thank you for sharing your story today. Is there anything in particular as far as business that you want me to promote?
My YouTube channel, my P3 Girls Club. It's a online community with like-minded women who want to become that girl in Christ, the best version of themselves in Christ. We have weekly Bible studies, 30-day challenges, as well as workshops. And I'm putting in courses soon, so look forward to that.
So excited. Seriously. Could you tell everyone your handle so they can give you a follow?
Yes. On Instagram is the real Vanessa 101, as well as TikTok, the real Vanessa 101. YouTube is Vanessa Elaine, Elaine.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and do a pretty picture so that you guys can follow all her things and definitely get to know her. And she is very accessible, so if you needed to like just shoot her a message, it's not a robot messaging.
Yeah.
But I'm seriously so excited for everything God's doing for you, and I'm so grateful that you're able to hop on today.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love you. I love you. I'm gonna keep you forever. Seriously.